Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us as we continue on our webinar series. Really excited. Before I turn it over to Carol, Linda, and Jennifer, when they go over some tips and tricks for optimizing Banner Student, I just want to go through a couple of kind of housekeeping items. First, for any questions, feel free to add those into the chat window, and you can do that in real time. If we are unable to answer the question in that moment, we certainly will come back to it and leave some time at the end. So please feel free to put those questions right in the chat. There is a chat icon at the bottom of the screen for those who may be unfamiliar. Next, for your microphone, please feel free to, you should have been muted when you joined. Please leave that on mute throughout the presentation to cut down on background noise. I would appreciate that. And then lastly, we will be recording the session. So feel free to take notes, but also know that you will have both the recording as well as the slides to reference back to. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to Carol.
Thank you, Stephen, and welcome everybody. We're glad you're able to join us for what is an afternoon on the East Coast and certainly midday most of the rest of the country. So thank you so much for being with us to talk about tips and techniques for optimizing Banner student functionality. My name is Carol Thomas. I am Senior Vice President with Forelli, and one of my areas of responsibility is our Banner practice. A little bit of my Banner background is that I started with Banner at release 1.3, doing a multi-campus implementation of Banner back in the 90s. And so I've been around this product for a very long time, maintained as much expertise as I could as I evolved in my higher ed leadership and technology career. Very happy to be with Forelli and supporting our clients and the institutions that we work with in their use of this important system. I'm joined today by my colleagues Linda Bloom and Jennifer Sally. Linda and Jennifer are senior consultants with Forelli who have a tremendous amount of experience as well with Banner. As you may or may not know, all Forelli consultants, and especially those who work on the ERP systems, come from having very deep experience at institutions around the country to support this product. And both Jennifer and Linda come with that great experience. I want to tell you a little bit about Forelli as a company before we start, and really to let you know that we know that your technology has to work for you, for your department, for your institution, and for your students and really all of your constituents. And that is our commitment as an organization, is to help make that happen for you. We really do get it. We are here to help you to do that. We are Forelli, and we think we distinguish ourselves in the group of companies that provides IT services to higher education. We believe we have special things to share, and those special things really come from our approach and the way we work as an organization. So the first part of that is that we do take a holistic approach when working with our clients. While you may ask us to work on a project, we will really want to understand the project and how it fits into your larger plans, but we'll also really want to understand you and your institution. We like to say we do our best when we know you best, and this holistic approach really helps us in that. We are always there for you. Even if you're not on a contract with us, you're welcome to call us. And as my colleague Kelly Sinicola says frequently, we're very generous with our advice. We will be happy to help you work through questions that you might have in that way, because we are also independent and our advice is objective. While we are a proud partner with Ellucian and with some other companies, we still don't have a stake in any of those. We do what we need to do to help you get the right solution for you. And on top of that, we guarantee your complete satisfaction. And we take a lot of pride in delivering a very high quality product, but it has to work for you, and we make sure that happens. That said, today's conversation is about optimizing Banner student functionality and some tips and techniques about how to address that. And the operative word here is functionality. I should also say that while today we're focusing on Banner Student, we do the same kind of work in all of the modules of Banner, and would be happy to talk about that with you if that's of interest. So the first thing I just wanted to provide you with is a little bit of structure about what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to talk about what we mean by optimization, why we think it's important to consider this as part of your overall Banner implementation maintenance. Talk about who's involved in optimization efforts, and then we'll get to those tips and techniques. So optimization is a word that means a lot of different things. In the context of today's conversation, it really is around three facets of optimization. One is getting to processing efficiency. So a question I've frequently heard when I've worked with clients and when I've been in the position of managing a Banner environment is, can't this be automated? Can't this process that I do on a day in and day out basis be automated? And one of the first questions I ask is, does the process answer yes or no, in the sense that, do you have to make human decisions along the way in that process? And if you do have to make those decisions because there's a maybe in there somewhere, then that process likely can't be automated. But if it can be reduced to a yes or no, the question is certainly it can be automated, and that is a very important component of the work that we consider, because we should be using our technology to really drive this kind of efficiency so that our people are doing their best work with the people that you support. We also look at optimization from the user experience perspective. And the question we've often heard is, can't this be easier? Why is it so hard? So we work hard at determining how we can make that user experience better for the people who are using Banner in whatever capacity they're using it. And finally, optimization to us means really being engaged in a commitment to ongoing improvement. Whatever we tag that as, if we call it continuous process improvement, continuous quality improvement, or simply continuing to improve the use of our system to support our institution, that's a very important component of the work that we do and we have done on campuses that we've worked at, is to make sure that that ongoing improvement is built into the overall staffing model. Because the question that comes to us many times when we point out somewhat some processes or some changes that have been made to Banner, or some things that people didn't have to know at the time of their implementation, we hear all the time, I didn't know Banner could do that. We like when we hear that phrase, and we can help you turn that phrase into something that Banner will do to support you. So why is it important? Well, it's important to do optimization because it does help us to return to the basics and really remember things that we might have forgotten. We've been working with Banner so long. So we will focus a little bit today on some basic things, but also knowing how Banner is configured at your institution helps you to support process changes. And we've had a lot of changes in the last few months as we've adjusted to changes in the way we do business as colleges and universities. Things like term date changes, changes in financial aid processing, changes in billing practices, all of that can be, the work around that is made easier when we understand how the basics of our system are operating. Then we want to make sure that that we're using the newest features and functionality of Banner. And I know when I was managing a large Banner implementations, the last thing I really wanted to do was read through the user guides, but I really spent a lot of time checking out what was being released each quarter, or in the past when it wasn't on quite as such an organized schedule, to make sure that if there was something there that would help us in our business process, we could use it. And we continue to encourage our colleagues at institutions to do that. But we also want to make sure that an optimization effort is helping you to maximize the return on your investment. Again, one of the things with new features and functionalities, you're actually paying for this in most cases in your maintenance fees. And so let's make sure we're using that and that we're getting the most out of the system that we can. And as my colleague Kelly Sinicola likes to say, let's future-proof your ERP. Let's make sure that you are prepared for the changes that might come along. And we do know some schools had an easier time with the adjustments that needed to be made as of March and April and May of this year, and some had more difficult times with it, and part of it was this understanding and knowledge of their system. So who is involved in optimization? As a CIO, I was often asked, would IT help with an optimization effort? And the answer to that, of course, is yes, but we can't do the optimization necessarily because we're not involved in the functional day-to-day work of the organization. Now, all the people on this call have been in that functional role, so we do know how to help to blend that technology and functional knowledge to help to really drive an optimization. So I say really anyone can be involved in optimization. I think of that mostly in the office level. When anybody in the office who sees something that isn't seeming to work correctly or seems too hard should be raising that, should be asking about that. At the same time, if someone in IT sees that something could be automated or that a process could be handled differently, that recommendation really needs to come forward. And it needs to come forward to people who lead processes, like directors of admissions or registrars or student accounts managers. It also needs to come from operations teams, the teams that really manage that back office operation. And finally, from functional analysts, power users, and more come great ideas and great approaches to the kinds of work that we're talking about today. So let's switch now to the conversation about some tips and techniques for really looking at how to establish those processing efficiencies, improve those user experiences, and continue to become aware of and implement improvements in the system from new features and functionality. So I want to start with processing efficiencies. We're going to talk today about the 5 topics that you see in front of you with some specific examples of how these processes can be reviewed and adjusted and optimized for your particular circumstances. We're going to talk about matching rules, some automations, a little bit about curriculum rules, a little bit really about other rules forms, and then thinking about incorporating new functionality into that. The first one we want to talk about is matching rules, because these really drive anyone who works with adding person records to Banner, drives their work. And we all know also that we don't want to create duplicate records, and we don't want to have to go through the process of resolving PIDMs. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Jennifer Sally, who's something of an expert on matching rules and matching rule configurations, to share her insights into what we can do here. So Jennifer?
Thanks, Carol. So you're absolutely right. Common matching rules is a great example of where you can start optimizing your system to enhance your performance in your processing in Banner. So common matching rules in general is just a set of rules that you have created to allow your system to conduct its algorithm to match records entering into Banner. Oftentimes when I work with clients, I see that they have one general rule that is very robust. It will be one priority with about 5 to 10 criteria: social security number, date of birth, first name, last name, those kind of criteria. Banner is best optimized if you build on your common matching rules. So in the GORCMRL page in Banner, you have priorities for common matching rules. And each priority acts as a tier for Banner to conduct its algorithm against and do its analysis of data entering into the system. So think of it as a compounding effect to build on your rules so that you get the best performance from your system. Your priority 1 rule can be simple as social security number, because theoretically no 2 people should share the same social security number. You can build on social security number and build a second priority, which could be date of birth, which will include the criteria: birth month, birth day, birth year. And just continue compounding the rules. You can go to priority 3, which will be first name, middle initial, last name. Build on to priority 4, could be a mailing address. And so on and so forth. And that allows Banner to safely go through the data and create its own if-then scenarios. If data meets the criteria for priority 1 data common matching rule, then let's move on to priority 2. If data meets the matching of priority 2 common matching rules, move on to priority 3, 4, 5, 6, however many you want to build out. You can be very robust in the number of priorities you create in a common matching rules, but this gives your system the ability to tackle the data at a tier level, not just say, okay, Banner, here's one rule with 18 criteria, go for it. So best practice is actually to build out your common matching rules based on priorities.
Thank you, Jennifer. I mentioned earlier we were getting back to basics. This functionality has been available for many years, but we raise it because we have been on many client sites where they have one rule and they wonder why they have so many suspended records when they're trying to do a load, or why they are actually generating duplicate records. So this notion of a stacked set of prioritized rules that handle smaller sets of criteria is very important, we think. And when we have helped schools to make those changes, they've seen quite an improvement in the work that goes on in terms of, again, adding person records to Banner.
Absolutely.
I think you would concur with me, would you, Jennifer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so there's another feature in the common matching product set that's the use of aliases. So I turn this back over to Jennifer.
Absolutely. So Carol, aliases plays a major role in common matching rules. Many institutions aren't familiar with this page in Banner. They don't know it exists, or the last time they may have touched eyes on it was when they did their initial Banner implementation. But the GORNAME page in Banner, it is a rules page. What it does is it allows the institution to list out possible aliases for common names. For example, my name is Jennifer, of course, but I can go by Jen, I can go by Jenni, I can go by Jennie or Jenny. So what the GOR name form does in Banner, it lists out possible aliases to be associated with a formal name, and it allows the system, as it's conducting its algorithm in the back, to go to this form and state that, okay, I have a Jen Sally with the same social security number, same date of birth. Is that equivalent, JEN, equivalent to Jennifer? And if it finds that there is an equivalence on this form, it will then show that that record is a match and you won't create a duplicate record in your system. So this is a very important form. And as robust as you can create it, I would recommend you put forth effort to maintaining this form and making certain that you have it as robust as possible.
So when I started with Banner many years ago, this form was not available. And I was the person that was doing all of the data loads early in my career. And boy, when this came out, I was so happy. And then when the prioritized matching rules came out, I was happy because it certainly made my job easier. So like I said, we have been at many institutions where this has not been fully implemented, and we do see that benefit. Taking it from there, I thought I would talk about an example automation. And again, this is going to some early Banner functionality that is still in use in a lot of schools, and that's the Banner web admissions application. We work with a number of schools who are still running that application, but as we heard during eLive, Ellucian is planning a new release of a Banner web admission product. But in the meantime, anything that loads into the SAAEAPS, and that is the Banner web admissions application, along with a lot of external load processes, drive the data to these tables into this form, is a good example of an automation that you might not be using right now. We have seen a lot of schools where the data comes into to SAEAPS, and then operators within the admission office are sitting there verifying, matching, and processing every application as it comes in. That can be streamlined by automating the load process. Now, there are some reasons not to do that. There are some concerns about the validity of the data that might want to be checked. But for the most part, I've yet to see a situation where those parameters on the automated process, which is SAR ETMT, couldn't be adjusted to give you great benefit. I wouldn't recommend doing that, though, until you have reviewed your matching rules and made sure that your matching rules are going to minimize the suspends, minimize duplicates, and really test those out. So those two things kind of go hand in hand, in my opinion. Certainly, there are many other automations that are part of the Banner baseline that, if we were working with you, we would want to review and see how and when those could be used. said we would talk a little bit about curriculum rules, and the reason that I bring this up is because recently was working with a client who didn't realize how they could manage access to information for students using the rules set on SOA CUR. So I thought I would highlight this particular form, and the specific tab is the Majors and Departments tab. Here's where you can establish effective dates for majors associated with the curriculum, and you might have, as your majors change, as they are apt to do, you can have multiple majors associated with the same curriculum rule based on date. At the same time, you can say, when are these what modules of Banner are these majors available to? And that's the piece that I worked with this particular school on. They did not want to recruit or admit into a major that they were sunsetting. And they were going through a lot of challenges trying to figure out how to make that happen. And basically, as long as the admission rules are set up correctly in terms of what's on the admission application, and that major is removed from the select list for the application, unchecking recruiting and admissions will not allow that major to have a SADMS record created for it. So that's, in my opinion, quite powerful, because it also allows you, as you're migrating data or moving, perhaps even moving from system to system, to use those rules to really manage the underlying data. So an example of a rules form that we usually set up, and of course we set it up when there's new curriculum or we need to change the majors, minors, and other components of that program, but it's also got a lot of power in terms of the way it manages within Banner. The other rules forms, and really any rules form, is open for consideration when you're doing an optimization project, because those rules forms control a lot of the processing. So the ones I like to look at, and I know my colleagues have verified that they like to look at them too, are the admissions decision rules, STV, APDC. Those flags are extremely powerful, and they can really help you to manage through that process. Even if you're using an external admission application process, you still have to come in and look at stuff in Banner, and and process things through those rules on the decision code form. Registration rules are affected by what's the settings on STV ESTS and STV RSTS, and that includes actually looking at reporting. Cannot tell you how many schools we've looked at the reports where they're trying to do counts of enrollment and they don't have the count and enrollment flag set on the right rule in the enrollment table. So those are the kinds of things that certainly are worth looking at as you're thinking through a process like this. Finally, for everyone's benefit, really keeping a handle on the new release reviews that are coming out from Ellucian is very important. And I know this was always a challenge at the institutions where I manage technology, because it's a lot of information that's coming in a relatively short period of time. And sometimes the impact of those changes are very significant. And I've been through some of those very significant changes in the way the general student record was managed, and the way curriculum rules were managed, and the introduction of program mappings and things that we take for granted now. Those have evolved over time, and sometimes you can't avoid them, even though some of us would like to avoid those changes. So very important to keep up with new features and functionality and figure out a way within your organization to make that possible. When you know what those new features and functionalities are, then you need to examine what their impact on your current processes will be. And that's why having this sort of log of kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it is very, very important. And then determine the value for you and your institution. The last thing I'll say, and you'll probably hear each one of us say it in some format or another, is if you're responsible for a major area of Banner, you want to make sure you have a log on to the Ellucian Hub, and that you're keeping track of what's going on there in the areas that are important to you. Then a second area of optimization is really on the user experience. And we've talked about getting access to the documentation, but right within Banner itself, there is some assistance for you. So Jennifer, would you like to talk about why we recommend using the Banner Online Help?
Absolutely, Carol. So as Carol stated, one of the greatest tools for you to understand how to use the Banner ERP system and how to work within the pages in Banner is right at your fingertips, and that's the Banner Online Help. So when you're in admin pages, on the left side menu, you'll see a question mark. And many of you have probably seen that question mark, have never clicked on it, have never bothered to look at it. But if you were to select that question mark, it'll open up a sub-menu and it will offer page help. If you click on the page help link, it opens up a new window within your browser that determines that outlines the data within that page. It gives you a description of the page, the purpose of the page, and it breaks the page down by blocks. So it will go through the key block, the main window block, and any further detailed data information block for that page. And it is a magnificent tool, one that is oftentimes underutilized, but one of the biggest assets that you have right at your fingertips within Banner.
And I concur, because I use it all the time when I'm trying to understand why something isn't working the way I expected it to work, especially now, now it's been 2 years now or so or more for many schools of being in Banner 9. I was a Banner 8, like I could move around really fast and I knew what everything was. In Banner 9, I still every once in a while get to a form where I need some help, and that online help is really, really extraordinarily helpful. Hey, nice word. Thanks, Jennifer. And the next piece we want to talk about is quick flows, which are a form of automation that any end user can create for themselves in terms of how they work through Banner pages. And I know that many of you probably already know about them, but we've actually, again, from our experience, seen a lot of schools who didn't know that they were there, and we've watched people set up some pretty complicated little sticky trails on their screen to remember where to go for forms to do particular processes. And so quick flows are a good one for that. And another one, which we won't go into detail today, but occurred to me as I was preparing this, was the personal menus that you can configure as well to kind of group the things that you need to work with. But for the purposes of today, I'd like to ask my colleague Linda Bloom to talk about quick flows and her use of quick flows. I think you're on mute, Linda.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was off. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Basically, as Carol said, it's an easy way to semi-automate a process, especially for the frontline users working through their daily tasks with the students. It helps expedite the process quickly, so you don't have to spend more time thinking about which Banner page you have to go to next. I think many people forget how easy a quick flow is to set up using the structure and organization of Banner. It takes some time to think about what kind of forms you want to use, what's going to go first, second, and third, and what areas of the forms will be used. Once that's organized, though, it takes a few minutes to define the workflow and then set it up through GTV Quick. From experience, I can tell you it's good to work with your staff on this and hear what tasks they perform. I used to have weekly meetings with my staff and ask, what are we going to click through in Banner today? Tell me what you did this week. How can we make it better? Can we expedite your production? From those discussions, we created quick flows for specific tasks. An example of this is setting up course sections in Banner. So you have your academic programs all built, courses are built. Now you have to build the sections on a term basis. Which sections are you going to do? Multi-sections, cross-listed, single sections, wait-listed. There's a lot of choices here. We clicked through Banner and started with SaySect. So for those of you registrar people, you know that this is your best friend, your BFF. We reviewed SaySect and decided we wanted to use multi-sections, cross-list, and waitlisting. We took those 3 types and put them in a quick flow based on our immediate needs and for a specific time frame. Eventually, we became pros and created quick flows for most of the term-driven Banner tasks. My staff started to realize they had more time during the day. Some had an extra hour asking me, well, what am I going to do? And the obvious answer is we now have more time to service students, give better student service support. So, I think this is an area many people forget about, that it's actually there. But we get so caught up in what we're doing on a daily basis, especially in this dynamic tech world. So I highly recommend taking some time to think about this again. It's always the little things we forget, and the little things always create maybe bigger problems. So that goes back to what Carol and Jennifer were talking about, click through, explore, and obviously practice.
Thank you, Linda. So then thinking about ongoing improvements, things that have been released from Ellucian that we may or may not have implemented yet, we started brainstorming as we were putting this presentation together and realized some of the things that we were coming up with have really been in the market for quite some time, but a lot of schools have not had a chance to really implement them. So two areas that we would certainly recommend thinking about in terms of new features and functionality are really getting to Banner 9 SSB. Some of you may already be there. Some of you may be part of the way there. I know some schools that are not at all there. And so we encourage people to consider that, understanding that there are some technical things that need to be done in the back end to really support Banner 9 functionality. But we have seen great response, particularly to the mobility features of Banner 9 SSB as it relates to faculty grade entry, student registration, and anything related to student financials. So those are areas that if your institution is making some decisions about direction, you might want to consider. The other one that we have worked with a number of our client institutions on is Banner Communication Management, fondly known as BCM, and Action Item Processing, or AIP. Those two often go together. We are actually working with a school right now who is implementing a large MEP environment, and one of the schools has been with Banner for a very long time and had built out an entire custom communications system technology to handle financial aid communications. They are in the process now, since they were introduced to Banner Communication Management through the other school coming to Banner, of replacing that entire custom environment with BCM. To us, that is a good use of time and money because you've purchased the product, you have it. It's quite powerful. It meets, we haven't seen a school that hasn't been particularly, has had any issues with it once it was installed. It can be a little complicated to set up, but isn't that true about just about everything that we set up, because our business processes are complex as well. Certainly we know if you're on the technical side that there's a lot of interest in Ethos and other products like that. They are certainly helping us to move Banner into a new way of thinking and a new way of doing business. So having these optimizations going on can also help you in that regard as well. So finally, in talking about ongoing improvements, we really want to remind all of ourselves, actually, and the clients that we work with, that one of the most important things we can do is work together. We all know that changes that we make in the front end of Banner and admissions and registrar affect accounts receivable. That all affects financial aid, and understanding how we work together on this actually came to the forefront for a number of our clients as they were doing semester date changes. And the registrar's office was doing a part of the operation, AR was doing another part, the financial aid was doing another part. And in some cases, we're actually working with the school right now, they didn't all talk to each other, and it ended up creating some difficult challenges for them in terms of their back-end processes. So that notion of working together is very, very important. I think we all believe that. Sometimes it's hard to execute too in the day-to-day. To the degree that you are able to build in time to document your processes so that when something new comes along, you can understand its impact more quickly. And then, of course, we keep saying this, but practice, like look around, figure it out, work with the documentation, try things in your test environment, and we think you'll find that time well spent. So if you say yes to this, then now what? Certainly that's completely up to you. We would just say we always believe that our work with you starts with a conversation, and we want to make sure that you know how to reach us. We're very happy to help. We're very happy, as I said, to give advice. So if you want to make a quick phone call, we'll be happy to help steer you. We would also be certainly very happy and honored to help you to structure a project as well. And with that, Stephen, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions? Wanted to open it up. I didn't see any in the chat window, so wanted to see if you feel free to take yourself off mute if you wanted to ask the question, or you can still type. While we're waiting, if anyone's going to come off, I will say, as Carol suggested, please feel free to email us at info@forelli.com with any suggestions on webinars or current topics that you think would be great for us to go over and share with the higher ed community. Additionally, you can always find out what topics or webinars are coming up on the Forelli What's News page at forelli.com/what's new. And with that, if there are no questions, I will say thank you to everyone for joining, and we will hang out here for a little bit and answer any one-on-one private questions if you guys feel free. Thanks so much.